Welcome to our deep dives, and today we're tackling Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, a classic.
Yeah, and you send in so many fascinating sources about it.
Yeah, definitely lots to unpack.
We're going to try to figure out why it's still so popular, centuries later.
Mhm.
Are you ready for some 19th century England?
Absolutely.
Think fresh scones and those tight corsets.
Gotta love those courses. Well, not literally, but they really highlight the social expectations of the time.
That's so true. And those expectations were no joke, especially for women.
Oh, absolutely. Marriage wasn't just about love back then. It was about economic security,
Right, like your whole future depended on snagging the right husband.
Exactly. And that sets the stage for the whole story. We've got the Bennet family with Mrs. Bennet trying to marry off her daughters and
Oh, Mrs. Bennet, what a character.
the ultimate stage mom.
But then we meet Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. Talk about a clash of personalities.
You picked up on that from your notes, right? They're complete opposites. Elizabeth is smart, independent, not afraid to challenge anyone.
Yeah, and Darcy comes off as what? Aloof, a bit arrogant.
Totally. And then there's that famous line he drops, "She's not handsome enough to tempt me."
Mm-hmm. Talk about a first impression.
You also pointed out, though, that he becomes one of the most tempting men in literature.
Yeah, eventually. But it's a journey, and I gotta say, their early relationship is quite the roller coaster.
Roller coaster of misunderstandings and dramatic rejections, as your notes say.
Nailed it. And who could forget that soggy declaration of love scene?
Ah, yes, the scene that launched 1,000 memes. But, it's more than just a romantic fumble.
Oh, definitely.
Austen is highlighting how they can't even communicate honestly
Yeah.
because of all those societal pressures.
It's like they're trapped by what's considered proper behavior for their class and gender.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that tension fuels so much of the drama.
It's like they're speaking in code sometimes.
Oh, in a way they are. Which brings us to Austen's brilliant use of language.
You marked some great examples in your notes, words like supercilious and affability and even impertinent. It's like a crash course in 19th century vocabulary.
More like a crash course in social hierarchy.
Whoa, okay, explain that.
Well, Austen uses those words not just to define things, but to critique the whole system.
Okay, I'm listening.
Take supercilious, for example.
Super what now?
Supercilious, it means arrogant, haughty, perfect for describing Darcy early on, wouldn't you say?
Oh, totally. But your point is, it's not just a personality quirk.
Right. Austen is hinting that his arrogance comes from his privilege and upbringing. It's like a product of the system, not just him being a jerk.
That's deep.
And then there's affability, being approachable, friendly, something Darcy lacks at first, but Elizabeth has in spades.
Yeah, she's got that charm.
And in Austen's world, that charm, especially for women, was like social currency.
Smoothing over those potential conflicts, right?
Exactly, keeping everyone at ease.
It's all about appearances.
Absolutely. And then there's Elizabeth's impertinence, her boldness, her willingness to challenge those norms, which leads us to your brilliant description, verbal clapback queen.
Uh-huh. Had to throw in some modern lingo.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Oh, it's spot on. She spars verbally, especially with Darcy.
It's like a battle of wits, but also kind of flirty, wouldn't you say?
You're onto something there. It's not just romance. It's about two intellectual equals going head to head.
And those exchanges, they reveal so much about them. Like you said, Darcy is brooding and socially constipated.
Ha, love those descriptions.
It's like he's got all these feelings bottled up.
And Elizabeth, with her sharp wit, forces him to confront all that. And then there are those other gems you found, Darcy, as a cinnamon roll who self-combusts around Elizabeth.
Had to highlight those. It's so funny, but also kind of true. Underneath that aloof exterior.
He's a softie. But those societal constraints make it hard for him to express himself.
He needs someone to crack that shell.
Exactly. And Elizabeth is just the woman for the job. Which brings us to those broader lessons Pride and Prejudice offers, the ones that still resonate today.
You mentioned that first impressions can be deceptive.
Yeah.
And it's so true. We all thought Darcy was a jerk at first.
Guilty as charged.
Right.
And Elizabeth misjudged Wickham, proving that looks can be deceiving.
It's like Austen is giving us a warning, especially in this age of social media where everything is so curated.
Oh, absolutely. It's like she predicted the dangers of judging people based on their online personas.
So true. It makes you think twice before hitting that follow button.
Right. Never judge a book by its Instagram filter.
Exactly. And speaking of judging, Pride and Prejudice really emphasizes how important personal growth is in love.
It's not just about that initial spark.
It's about growing together,
Yeah.
evolving as individuals.
Exactly. Both Darcy and Elizabeth have to face their flaws.
Oh, yeah, they've got their work cut out for them.
Darcy has to let go of that Pride and Prejudice.
And Elizabeth has to get over her misjudgments.
It's that whole journey of self-discovery that makes it so relatable.
Even centuries later, it's like, yeah, I've been there.
Right. We've all had those moments of like, oh, I was so wrong about that person, or even I was so wrong about myself.
And it's definitely not your typical fairy tale romance.
No instant happily ever after here.
It's more realistic, right? They have to work for it.
They have to earn it. And speaking of earning things, you pointed out how Elizabeth rejects these proposals from guys who could give her financial security.
Yeah, that's a big deal, especially back then.
Huge. She's turning down comfort, stability.
It's like she's saying, nope, not settling. I deserve love and a happiness.
And that ties back to what we were saying about the pressures on women. She's not playing by those rules.
She's breaking the mold, which is super inspiring even now.
Absolutely. She's a feminist icon before the word even existed.
You know, it's interesting, though. Austen shows us what happens when people do follow those rules.
Oh, yeah, like Charlotte Lucas.
Elizabeth's friend, right? She makes the practical choice.
Yeah.
Marries Mr. Collins for security.
Yeah, Charlotte's story is like a reality check. A reminder that sometimes love and security don't go hand in hand.
And Austen doesn't shy away from those hard truths.
Not at all. She shows the complexities, the compromises people make.
It's what makes her work so real. It's not just a fluffy romance.
No, there's real depth there.
Yeah.
And speaking of depth, we can't forget about Mr. Collins.
Oh, Mr. Collins. You described him perfectly, hilariously awkward.
He's a walking, talking cringe fest.
But you're right, there's more to him than just comic relief.
He's like this embodiment of social climbing.
That blind ambition, that desperate need to impress.
Exactly. All that fawning over Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
And that disastrous proposal to Elizabeth. Oh, man, that scene is gold.
Austen uses him to satirize the whole upper class, you know?
It's like she's saying, look at how ridiculous you are.
Spot on. And that satire isn't just aimed at the upper crust. You mentioned the contrast between the Bingleys and the Darcys.
Ah, yeah. New money versus old money.
It's another layer of Austen's commentary on class and social mobility.
The Bingleys made their fortune through trade.
Right. Exactly. While Darcy's family is all landed gentry.
Generations of wealth and status.
And that shapes their whole worldview.
Bingley is more open, adaptable.
While Darcy is all about tradition, hierarchy.
Which, of course, affects their love lives.
Of course. Bingley falls for Jane, despite her lower social standing.
But Darcy struggles with his feelings for Elizabeth.
It's like Austen is saying, love can transcend class if you let it.
But that's easier said than done, especially back then.
Definitely. Those social barriers were real.
It makes you wonder, though, what would Austen write about today's society?
Oh, man, the possibilities. Imagine Darcy as a tech CEO.
With a superiority complex the size of Silicon Valley.
Tweeting out his disdain for everyone.
And Elizabeth would be like a blogger calling him out.
Yes, using her platform to fight for social justice.
Okay, I would read that book. It just shows how relevant Austen's themes are.
They're timeless. Pride, prejudice, the struggle for love and understanding, it's all still happening today, just in different forms.
Makes you think. Now let's switch gears a bit and talk about something purely fun. Austen's writing.
Oh, yes. Her prose is like a warm bath for the soul.
It's witty, engaging, and it really shows off her skill. Like you said, it's a survival skill in that world of social maneuvering.
Totally. Her characters use language as a weapon.
Especially Elizabeth.
Yes.
She deflects, exposes hypocrisy, asserts her intelligence.
And it's all done with such elegance. It's like watching a verbal fencing match.
You highlighted one of my favorite lines. I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine.
Brilliant, isn't it?
It tells you everything about Elizabeth in one sentence.
Her wit, her strength, her refusal to be belittled.
And it's a subtle dig at Darcy's pride, too.
Oh, definitely. Like, dude, it's not just about you.
Austen packs so much into each sentence. It's amazing.
It's what makes Pride and Prejudice so much more than a simple romance.
It's funny. It's smart. It makes you think. And it's beautifully written.
Exactly. It works on so many levels. We laugh, we swoon, we reflect.
And speaking of swooning, let's talk about that delicious romance.
Ah, yes. This slow burn between Elizabeth and Darcy. It's become legendary.
It's a testament to Austen's skill, that she can make us root for a couple that starts off hating each other.
The enemies to lovers trope at its finest.
And what I love is that it's not just about physical attraction.
Oh, no. It's about their minds, their spirits.
They challenge each other.
Make
each other grow.
And that's how they find love. It's not just given, it's earned.
It's like a love that transcends all those societal rules and expectations.
Exactly. It's about seeing past the pride and the prejudice to the person underneath.
Okay, let's talk about some of those iconic scenes that show their relationship evolving.
Oh, there are so many to choose from.
I know, but that first dance at the Meryton Assembly has to be up there.
The awkwardness, the tension.
Darcy is so stiff and uncomfortable.
And Elizabeth is all witty retorts and barely concealed eye rolls.
It's like you can feel the animosity radiating off of them.
Austen sets up their dynamic perfectly right there.
And then there's that train wreck of a first proposal from Darcy.
Oh my goodness, you can't help but cringe.
He manages to insult her family, A&D declare his love, all in the same breath.
Talk about a mixed message.
No wonder she shuts him down so hard.
But that rejection, it's a turning point.
It makes Darcy realize he needs to change.
To confront his flaws.
And Elizabeth starts to see that maybe she was wrong about him.
It sets the stage for them to come back together, stronger and wiser.
And then, that scene at Pemberley.
Magical.
Elizabeth sees Darcy in his element.
Kind to his sister, generous to those around him.
It's like she's seeing the real him for the first time.
And that opens her heart to the possibility of love.
And the setting, the descriptions of the estate, it's all so romantic.
Austen knows how to build the atmosphere.
It's a masterpiece of storytelling.
And it all leads up to that second proposal, which is everything the first one wasn't.
It's heartfelt, sincere.
Darcy acknowledges his past mistakes.
And Elizabeth sees that he's truly changed.
It's a beautiful moment of growth and redemption.
And their final union, it's a celebration of love, conquering everything.
Overcoming pride, prejudice, societal barriers.
It leaves you feeling hopeful, like true love is possible, even in a complicated world.
Exactly. And their story isn't just about romance.
Right. It's about personal growth,
And
about self-discovery,
about challenging your own biases.
about finding someone who makes you a better person.
Absolutely. And now let's take a look at the bigger picture. Pride and Prejudice isn't just a book, it's a cultural phenomenon.
It's been adapted so many times.
For stage, screen, you name it.
From that classic BBC miniseries.
Colin Firth emerging from the lake as Mr. Darcy.
Iconic. To the Keira Knightley movie.
And even Bollywood adaptations.
It just shows how much it resonates with people across cultures and generations.
It's not just limited to traditional media either. There are web series, graphic novels, even musicals.
It's like Austen created this world, and fans have just run wild with it.
They've made it their own, added their own interpretations. It's amazing.
It speaks to the emotional connection people have with the story. It's not just passive consumption, it's active participation.
Exactly. And it goes back to what we were saying about reinterpretations. Whether it's a scholarly analysis or a fan-made musical, it's all part of the conversation.
Pride and Prejudice keeps inspiring creativity and discussion.
It's a testament to the power of storytelling. A good story can break free from its original context and take on new meaning over time.
That's the beauty of classics, right? They keep evolving.
They stay relevant. They speak to us in new ways.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm just so impressed by Pride and Prejudice.
Me too. It's so much more than just a romance.
It's witty, it's insightful, it's about society, class, gender. It's about being human.
And it still resonates with us because those themes are timeless. Love, family, finding your place in the world.
We've covered a lot of ground today. From those witty exchanges between Elizabeth and Darcy to the bigger social commentary, it's clear there's so much to unpack in this novel.
Layers upon layers. Austen was a master of her craft.
Any final thoughts for our listener? Something for them to think about as they continue their own exploration of Pride and Prejudice.
I would challenge our listener to think about this. If Pride and Prejudice were written today, how would those themes play out in our modern world?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Would Darcy be a tech giant grappling with ethical issues? Would Elizabeth be leading a social media movement? How would their paths cross in our digital age?
What prejudices would they have to overcome in our society?
Exactly. It's a way to connect those timeless themes to our own lives.
It's like taking the conversation beyond the book and into the real world.
Exactly. Because great literature, like Pride and Prejudice, it doesn't just entertain. It makes you think, it makes you question, it keeps the conversation going.
Love that.
You know, it's funny. We've been talking about all the different interpretations of Pride and Prejudice.
Right. From the romantic comedy angle to the deeper social commentary.
It's like peeling back layers of an onion.
Haha, love that analogy. But you're hinting that there are even more layers, right?
Okay. There are. You included some pretty scholarly analyses in your sources.
Yeah, I wanted to get into some of those more academic takes.
It's like we've been having a book club discussion, and now it's time for grad school.
Hit me with it. What are some of those alternative readings?
Well, some scholars argue that Pride and Prejudice can be read as a critique of colonialism.
Whoa, really? Okay, explain that one.
It's subtle, of course, not explicitly stated, but you have to remember the context of Austen's time.
Right, she was writing during the peak of the British Empire.
Exactly. Britain was expanding its influence all over the world, and some scholars believe that's reflected in the novel, even if it's not the main plot.
Yeah, interesting. So how does that play out in the story itself?
Well, think about Mr. Bingley. He's the nouveau rich guy,
That's
right?
new money, yeah. In contrast to Darcy's old money landed gentry situation,
Right. And Bingley's wealth likely came from trade.
which back then was often connected to colonial ventures.
Exactly. So some critics see Bingley's character as representing the economic benefits of colonialism.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It's not that Austen is explicitly condemning colonialism, but she's contrasting Bingley's wealth with Darcy's, and maybe hinting at the source of that wealth and its implications.
So it's like a subtle social commentary on the impact of the empire back home in England.
It adds a whole other dimension to the story, doesn't it?
It does. It makes you realize how much depth there is to Austen's work. It's not just about romance and social manners.
It's about power dynamics, economic systems, the whole context of her time.
It's amazing how she weaves all those threads together.
She was a genius. And speaking of geniuses, let's not forget about the Pride and Prejudice fandom.
Oh, yeah, the fandom is amazing. It's so active. Fan fiction, art, events, even themed weddings.
People are obsessed with this story.
It's like Austen created this world, and fans have just taken it and made it their own.
It's a testament to the power of her characters and the enduring appeal of those themes.
And it ties back to what we were saying about reinterpretations. Whether it's a scholarly analysis of colonialism or a fan-made musical, Pride and Prejudice inspires creativity across the board.
Exactly. People connect with it on so many levels.
And it shows how a good story can really transcend time and place.
Also,
it takes on new meanings for each generation.
it's what makes a classic a classic.
Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into Pride and Prejudice, I have to say, I'm walking away with a newfound appreciation for this novel.
Me too. It's so much more than just a fluffy romance.
It's witty, it's insightful, it makes you think about society, class, gender. It's about being human.
And it's all wrapped up in this engaging story with unforgettable characters.
We've explored a lot of those layers today, from the witty banter between Elizabeth and Darcy to those subtle hints of social commentary. It's clear there's a lot to unpack.
Austen was a master of her craft. There's always something new to discover in her work.
So, as we leave our listeners, what's one final thought you want to impart? Something to ponder as they continue their own journey with Pride and Prejudice.
I would challenge our listeners to consider this. If Pride and Prejudice were written today, how would it look? How would those timeless themes translate to our modern world?
That's a great question. I'm already picturing a modern-day Darcy.
Would he be a tech mogul with a superiority complex? Would Elizabeth be a social media influencer fighting for change? How would their paths cross in our digital age?
What kinds of prejudices would they face?
Exactly. It's a way to connect those timeless themes to our own lives.
It's a reminder that the things Austen was writing about are still relevant today, maybe in different forms, but the core issues are the same.
Love, family, societal pressures, finding your place in the world, it's all still there.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Pride and Prejudice.
It's been a pleasure exploring this classic with you.
Likewise. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive and that it's inspired you to revisit this amazing work of literature. Until next time, happy reading.